He stole my pens. I almost ruined his life. Petty revenge. The first pen I noticed missing was my Montblanc. Classic, black, smooth as silk. I'd gotten it for myself after closing that awful merger deal, a personal reward for surviving months of endless negotiations and soul-crushing conference calls. It wasn't just a pen, it was a symbol. I tore apart my desk, every drawer, every shelf, under the keyboard, behind the monitor. Nothing. I even checked the communal supply closet, half expecting to find it nestled amongst the generic Bics. Lost something? Sarah, the receptionist, leaned over my cubicle wall. Her bright smile a little too cheerful for 8:00 a.m. on a Monday. My Montblanc, I said, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. It's gone. Sarah frowned. That's a nice pen. Maybe you left it at home? No way. It lives on my desk. I'd never take it home. I spent the rest of the morning feeling vaguely violated. It was just a pen, I told myself. But it felt like a personal attack. Then, the second one disappeared. Limited edition, Lamy Safari, bright purple with a black clip. Another gift to myself, this one for finishing the bar exam, even though I didn't actually want to be a lawyer. That was the kicker, wasn't it? I was surrounded by lawyers, supporting their careers, enabling their success, while my own aspirations sat gathering dust in a box labeled, maybe someday. This time, I was sure. Someone was taking my pens. I started keeping a log. Date, time, which pen was last seen, and any potential suspects. The list was short. Sarah, Mr. Harrison, highly unlikely. He used exclusively fountain pens, and Greg, the paralegal with the winning smile and the uncanny ability to avoid actual work. He was always borrowing things, always forgetting to return them. He was also the only one who complimented my pens, always making some remark about how fancy they were. So, I watched him. I pretended to be engrossed in paperwork, but my eyes were always on Greg. And then, I saw it. He was at the copier, fiddling with something in his hand. A flash of purple, my Lamy. I stormed over, my voice dangerously low. Greg, is that my pen? He looked up, feigning surprise. Oh, hey, Amelia. Yeah, I just borrowed it for a sec. I needed to make a quick note. He clicked the pen, a smug little click that sent my blood pressure soaring. Borrowed? I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Without asking? And you haven't returned my Montblanc either, have you? He shrugged, his charm offensive in full force. Relax, Amelia. It's just a pen. I'll bring it back later, promise. He didn't. The next day, my Pelikan Souverain vanished. That was it. I was at war. I started with the petty stuff. Things that would annoy him, but wouldn't get me fired. I replaced his regular coffee with decaf. He looked confused and sluggish all morning. I swapped his stapler with one that was constantly jamming. He cursed under his breath every time he tried to use it. I changed his computer background to a picture of Nicolas Cage covered in bees. He yelped when he saw it, and I had to bite back a laugh. Sarah thought I was losing it. Amelia, this is getting out of hand. Just report him to HR. HR, I scoffed. Linda will just tell me to be more assertive and schedule a conflict resolution seminar. Besides, this is more fun. But it wasn't really fun. It was consuming. I spent all my free time plotting new ways to torment Greg. I was becoming obsessed. Then, I found out the real reason he was taking my pens. It wasn't about the pens themselves. It was about everything. I was working late one night trying to catch up on a mountain of paperwork. Greg had left hours ago, but his computer was still logged in. Curiosity got the better of me. I know, it was wrong. But I couldn't resist. I scrolled through his emails. Mostly junk, a few internal memos. And then, I saw it. An email to a client with a draft of a legal document attached. A document that I had written, word for word. Greg had simply changed the name and sent it as his own work. Rage, cold and sharp, filled me. He wasn't just stealing my pens, he was stealing my work. He was taking credit for my ideas, my effort, my talent. The talent that he so clearly lacked. I dug deeper. I found more emails, more documents, all of them based on my work. He was building his career on my back. That's when the petty revenge stopped being petty. It became necessary. I started subtly sabotaging his work. I accidentally deleted important files, backed them up first, of course. I changed key dates and figures in his drafts, just enough to cause confusion and delay. I started dropping hints to the other paralegals about his incompetence. "Did you know Greg thought stare decisis was a skin condition?" I said casually at lunch one day. He couldn't find the federal rules of evidence in the library. "Said it was too complicated," I whispered to another. My goal wasn't just to annoy him anymore. It was to expose him, to show everyone what he really was, a fraud. Sarah was horrified. "Amelia, you're going to get yourself fired. This is way beyond pens now." "He deserves it," I said, my voice hard. "He's been getting away with this for too long." The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Greg was assigned to a major case, a multi-million-dollar lawsuit involving a breach of contract. It was a high-profile case, one that could make or break his career. And it was my chance. I knew the case inside and out. I had been working on it for weeks, doing all the grunt work that Greg was supposed to be doing. I knew where the bodies were buried, so to speak. I compiled a detailed report outlining Greg's incompetence. I included specific examples of his mistakes, his misrepresentations, and his reliance on my work. I made sure to highlight the potential risks to the case if he continued to be involved. Then, I anonymously sent the report to Mr. Harrison. I sat back and waited. It didn't take long. The next day, Mr. Harrison called a meeting. Greg was summoned to his office along with several other partners. I could hear their voices through the closed door, rising and falling in waves of anger and disbelief. I couldn't resist. I crept down the hallway and pressed my ear against the door. "Greg, these allegations are serious," Mr. Harrison was saying, his voice cold and sharp. "Can you explain why this document contains so many factual errors?" I don't know," Greg stammered. "I must have overlooked something." "Overlooked?" "This is a key piece of evidence. This could cost us the case." I held my breath, my heart pounding in my chest. Then, Greg did something unexpected. He panicked. He tried to deflect blame, accusing me of sabotaging his work. "I think Amelia is trying to undermine me," he said, his voice rising in desperation. "She's been acting strange lately. She's been stealing my stapler, messing with my coffee, changing my computer backgrounds." Mr. Harrison was silent for a moment. "Then," he said, "Amelia? What does Amelia have to do with this?" That was my cue. I pushed the door open and stepped into the room. "Everything," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "I did all those things. The stapler, the coffee, the background. It was me." The room went silent. All eyes were on me. "But that's not the whole story," I continued, my voice gaining strength. "Greg is incompetent. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's been taking credit for my work, misrepresenting his qualifications, and putting this entire case at risk." I laid it all out. The stolen documents, the fabricated emails, the deliberate sabotage. I held nothing back. Greg stared at me, his face pale with shock and fear. Mr. Harrison looked stunned. The other partners exchanged bewildered glances. "Why would you do this, Amelia?" Mr. Harrison asked, his voice a low growl. "Because he stole my pens," I said, my voice cracking. "And because he stole my work. And because he doesn't deserve to be here." The meeting ended in chaos. Greg was suspended pending an investigation. I was escorted back to my desk and told to wait for HR. Sarah rushed over, her face a mask of concern. "Amelia, what did you do?" "I exposed him," I said, my voice flat. "I told the truth." "But at what cost?" she asked, shaking her head. "You could lose your job." I didn't care, not anymore. I had done what I needed to do. I had avenged my pens and my work. The next few days were a blur. Linda, the HR manager, interviewed me, grilling me about my actions and my motives. I told her everything, omitting nothing. David, the IT guy, helped me recover some of the deleted files from Greg's computer, providing concrete evidence of his plagiarism. Mr. Harrison reassigned the case to another paralegal, someone competent and reliable. Greg was fired. I heard he was having trouble finding another job. His reputation was ruined. I, on the other hand, was not fired. But I was placed on probation. I had to attend anger management sessions. I had to undergo regular performance reviews. I was ostracized by some of my colleagues, while others secretly admired me for my courage. I thought about my pens, about the Montblanc that started it all, about the Lamy, the Pelikan, the others. They were just objects I knew, but they represented something more. They represented my pride, my passion, my attention to detail. I also thought about Greg, about his charm, his ambition, his desperation. He was a flawed person, yes, but he was also a product of a system that rewarded appearances over substance. In the end, I got my revenge, but it came at a price. I had almost ruined my own life in the process. I learned a valuable lesson. That anger is a dangerous thing. That revenge is never truly satisfying, and that sometimes the best way to win is to walk away. A few weeks later, I was walking through the office when I saw a new employee, fresh out of college, sitting at Greg's old desk. She was furiously scribbling notes, a pen clutched tightly in her hand, a pen that looked suspiciously like my missing Montblanc. I stopped and stared. She looked up, startled. "Can I help you?" she asked. I smiled, a small, sad smile. "No," I said. "I think I'm good." I walked away, my heart heavy. The cycle continues.